Hi, I'm Janelle. This is Janelle Knows Money. Thank you for coming to my channel. Today we're going to talk about 6 impressive questions you can ask at the end of an interview to help you actually learn about the job. So the first question you'll want to consider asking to the hiring manager is, what does your management style look like? This is going to help you understand whether or not your work style and preferences align with the hiring manager's work style and preferences. Here's some things to look out for when the hiring manager is answering this question. First of all, it should be kind of a red flag to you if the hiring manager doesn't have a solid answer to this question. It might also be a red flag depending on how you perceive it and how the person is interacting with you if they don't have a pretty immediate answer to this question as well. Every good manager has thought about what their management style looks like, what their objectives are when managing employees, and if they have had the time to think and reflect on what type of manager and how they like to manage, then the chances are they're going to be a better manager than somebody who hasn't even taken the time to think about what their management style might look like. Again, if the hiring manager struggles to answer this question, it could mean that they're potentially not a very self-aware manager. And when we're looking for a job, we want to make sure that we are moving to teams where we have self-aware managers that are going to be on our team and that are going to have our best interests in mind. Most of the time, people leave their jobs because they don't like their manager and they're looking for somebody else who they might be a better fit with. So definitely really just take in and ask additional follow-up questions after the manager is answering this question. If they say something that concerns you or something that you think might not be a good fit with your style, feel free to ask questions here. Always remember that you're interviewing this hiring manager in the same way that they're interviewing you. You want this job to be a good fit for you just as they want it to be a good fit for them. The second question that I would recommend asking is, what does growth look like for somebody in this role, both within the position and from a promotional standpoint? If you're somebody that learns quickly and gets bored easily, this is going to be such an important question for you. This is the type of person that I am. I'm somebody that I feel like I pick up tasks pretty quickly, and if I don't have additional new things coming at me, I get kind of bored. And so it's really important for me to know and understand what additional duties and tasks that I can pick up over time within this role, and it helps me to understand, and it makes me feel better if I ask this question and the hiring manager has thought about what growth looks like for the person in the role they're hiring for. We like to see managers who have thought about how this role might shift and evolve over time. Again, it shows that they're a very thoughtful person, they're a thoughtful manager, and we appreciate it when our managers are thoughtful about our growth and are investing in us as employees. Another reason this is an important question to ask is because it shows a manager that you're interested in growth opportunities. It tells them that you want to be in this role, and not just within the role, but you want to take on additional tasks and duties that might not be explicitly in the job description. They're going to enjoy hearing from somebody that wants to grow, wants more opportunity, wants to do things within the role that will get them to the next level. It shows that you're ambitious and determined and you're really excited about the job. And then from the standpoint of how this is beneficial to you and not just to the manager, knowing and understanding that, it can help you understand what the manager's expectations look like, which can help you then better understand what you're working towards in this job and what the future state might look like. Something to look out for when a manager is answering this question, something that might be a red flag, is them telling you that there are endless opportunities for growth within this position without giving you any concrete examples of what that looks like. So that could mean them not giving you a concrete example of how your duties would expand over time, over the course of being in this job for a year or 2 years. It could also mean that they're not giving you any answers about what a promotional track might look like for the person in this position. And the reason they're probably telling you there are endless opportunities is probably because they haven't thought about what a promotional track or what growth opportunities look like for somebody in this job. So if they're not being thoughtful about what the growth might look like for in this job, we want to just kind of flag that as something we might be concerned about. If they are giving you that larger overarching answer, you can ask them again in another way to say, hey, I'm also looking for some additional specifics as to what a promotional track looks like for somebody in this position over time. And that might get them to answer the question a little bit more clearly. The third question I recommend asking is, how do you measure success for somebody in this role? The answer to this question will tell you a little bit more about what the manager's expectations look like for somebody coming into this position. You could also get a little bit more specific and can say, what do your expectations look like for somebody who's been onboarded for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or even 6 months from the time that they were onboarded? This might tell you a little bit more about whether or not they have, potentially unreasonable expectations, and it will just tell you more about, how they feel the workload should be for the person in this job, and then that'll indicate to you that you can evaluate what an appropriate workload looks like for you, and if it sounds like it's something that might be too much or too little and you would need more work, then maybe this isn't the right role for you, and maybe you want to look at another opportunity. Just make sure that you feel comfortable with the amount of time and effort that's going to be expected of you. The fourth question that I would recommend asking is, can you tell me about the departmental goals over the next 5 years? The reason you want to ask this question is because it'll give you a vibe on whether or not the department is strategically driven, administratively driven, and it'll tell you again whether or not that they've been thoughtful about the growth of the department. For me, I've always wanted to work in a department that has a strategic mindset. I want to make sure that as someone who works in compensation, which is a subsector of HR, that HR has a seat at the table. There are organizations out there that look at HR as more of an administrative function, people that are pushing paper a little bit more, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it's really important that leadership sees HR as something that is more strategic, that we can bring data, that we can do analyses, that we can bring a lot of value and help out the business as a whole. When you're listening to the hiring manager's answer, you're gonna just have to really pay attention to what they're saying. They may not come straight out and say, we have administrative goals or we have strategic goals. You'll have to use keywords that they are using in order to then decipher for yourself whether or not this might be the right fit from either an administrative or strategic standpoint. The fifth question I would recommend asking is, what are some of the biggest obstacles you're encountering right now? This will give you some additional information about where the pain points are in the organization. Learning about the pain points also then gives you the opportunity to solve them and show that you can bring so much additional value to the company. Learning about the pain points then gives you the opportunity to solve them and show the hiring manager that you can do that, and then you bring that value to the company, to the organization, and they're going to see that and they're going to be excited that you can come in and you can hit the ground running and you're somebody who will be able to help them solve their problems. Because it's the end of the interview, I wouldn't recommend trying to solve those problems within that moment, but it's a great topic to bring up when you're writing a thank you note. Within that thank you note, you can let the hiring manager know that you've been thinking about this question that they answered for you and that you have some suggestions that could potentially help, and you feel like you could really be a value add to the team because you could help them immediately solve some of the obstacles that they are currently facing. Things to look out for when managers are answering this question is how they're presenting the obstacle. Depending on how they present it, we might consider it a red flag. You can pay attention to their tone of voice. You can pay attention to the way that they talk about it. So even though they're talking positively about, the obstacle they're encountering and that they feel like they can solve it, at the same time, their tone might tell you otherwise. So definitely take note and pay attention to that. Also pay attention to the way that they're answering this question. I've been in interviews where hiring managers have answered this question in a way that has told me that they are not happy and satisfied with management, with leadership, the way that other departments and individuals at the company are helping them try and move through this obstacle. And if those are a big enough red flag, you might want to consider taking a different opportunity. What I'm really trying to say is that you need to feel their vibe. You can get a sense for whether they're frustrated for the company, whether they're optimistic, if they're hopeful. Really play into those cues that they're giving you to try and get a feel for whether this is the right organization and the right fit for you. The sixth question that I always ask, no matter what, without fail is there anything about my experience that is giving you pause that I could clear up right now? Another way to ask this is, after having this conversation and chatting, is there anything that I touched base on previously that you would like me to expand upon? This question allows you to further clarify any concerns that the interviewer might have had about one of your answers. In essence, it's kind of a do-over and gives you a second chance to explain something that they might have wished you went more in depth on and they wanted to better understand about your experience. I've also noticed that when I ask this question, managers tend to give me some feedback on how they think the interview went and what aspects of my experience might be a good fit fit for the job. After you've been interviewing for a while, it always feels good to hear some positive feedback from the hiring manager. It's also at this point that they'll typically tell me what the next steps are. They'll let me know that they'd like to move me to the next round. They'll let me know a recruiter will reach out to me, and they'll really outline what the next steps in the process look like, which again, as a candidate that's waiting to hear back from individuals, it's really helpful to know and hear what an expected timeline looks like. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I hope at least one of these questions is going to be helpful to you when you're interviewing for a new position in order to get a better feel of whether or not a hiring manager or the company is the right fit for you. If you have any questions about any of the questions that I listed out here and want a better idea of why they might be a good question or not a good question to ask, leave it below in the comments. If you like this content, make sure to give it a thumbs up so that I know to make more videos like this. Also, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.